You good?
I don't put my phone on. Do not disturb. Oh, thank you. Oh, they're all, right. Would like to call to order the June 4th, 2024 Columbia Borough Council meeting. Could I have a roll call, please?
Councilperson Day,
Here.
Councilperson Cotton,
Here.
Councilperson Stahl,
Here.
Councilperson Fisher. Here. Councilperson Price.
Here.
Councilperson Murphy.
Here.
Councilperson Burgard.
Here.
And Mayor Lux.
Here.
All right.
Is there anyone would like to offer an invocation? No, if you'd like, please rise for a moment of silence. Councilperson Burgard, would you like to lead us in a pledge?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, announcement of executive sessions, there were none. Are there any additions, deletions, or reorganization of the agenda needed? Not aware of anything. So I have a motion to approve the agenda as published.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilperson Kaufman and a second by Councilperson Stahl to approve the agenda as published. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? All right. Citizen comment, non-agenda items only. Jessica, I'm assuming that you are agenda, as well as the ones listed for PLCB resolution. That's an agenda item. So I have Mary Wickenheiser.
Ashley's coming up a couple times recently in the meetings. It's been hard to pick up. So if you guys can all make sure your mics are on and
Yes.
speak into them so we can all hear.
And this has been correctly
Duly advertised and posted.
duly
Yes.
advertised and posted. Thank you.
Okay, good evening. Couple things here. I think more than a year ago, I had been to a council meeting and made comment regarding Heritage Drive and the parking that occurs down there when there are gatherings. And there was one occurred this weekend. And I thought that there had been discussion about making the area along the fence, no parking, that really is restricted down there when there are gatherings down there. You know, it's up to Norfolk Southern to deal with the other side. But it reaches the point where you're lucky you can get a vehicle through there. And at this point, if that was to happen, it has not happened. And this is the beginning of summer. It was the first gathering down there. You come across Union Street and it's very tight to go up Heritage Drive. Tonight you're acting on the ordinance with regard to light business, not discussing that, changing to the light business zone. At the same time, in February, I'm putting on my planning commission right now. At the same time, in February, we made recommendations to council with regard to changing the zoning of the property at 740 South 12th Street from light business to medium density residential. Where does that ordinance stand, you know? And that property's now been sold to medium density residential, and that change is not taking place.
That ordinance was gone through the county. It's scheduled to come to council in the end of June or beginning of July, I think.
Beginning July 9th.
So
July
we're gonna,
9th.
we'll spend June doing the requisite advertising to the property owners.
Because
Yep.
I had asked,
Yeah.
Councilman Kaufman was at the meeting that night, and I raised this issue. My concern was that it was sold as one zoning, and it was not that zoning at the time of sale.
And when we talk to our solicitor, the process is a pending ordinance doctrine where if a municipality is already in process of rezoning or making a change to an ordinance, that ordinance can be considered in process. Therefore, like for a rezoning, since the borough initiated it.
I just wanted to make
Yeah.
sure we were good with this.
Yeah, we're good. All good.
Okay, and again, Manager Stivers is aware of this, and I'm looking forward to the resolutions for my term and Nathan Roach's term to be corrected
Yeah, that's on the agenda for next week.
Next week.
next
Because
week.
it's a voting, we had to wait for the
Right, I
voting
know
meeting.
you need to vote on that.
Yeah.
I just, wanted to make sure that was taken care of.
Yep.
Neither of us really cares to serve 5 years, and since the legal term is only 4 years. Okay, those were my comments that I needed to make this evening.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Mayor.
All right, is there anyone that would like to speak on a non-agenda item that did not have a chance to sign up? All right, Mayor Lutz, Chief Romer.
Yeah, Council President, I have two things to discuss tonight. One, I was asked to remind our residents that the posting of yard sale signs, event signs, and other type signs on borough property, telephone poles, and the like is prohibited. If you want to post a sign, and I see a lot of people are really catching on, they're posting the signs with like the yard signs for elections in yards. You can do that in someone's yard as long as you have the permission. But for example, when I leave here tonight at 6th and Locust, I'm going to take one off of one of the light poles that's taped on there, and I hope I don't pull paint when I take that off. And that's what happens to our street signs and light poles and things like that. When you start taping them up in the same way with putting nails and screws and everything else in poles, it starts to cause a problem. It's illegal. I think we're doing a pretty good job, but from what I heard, we needed a reminder. And probably because the weather's getting nice, people starting to have yard sales and whatever have you. The second item, I'm going to speak just a little bit. We had a terrible tragedy Sunday. Very unfortunate incident. Ironically, a couple of weeks ago, you and I met with a representative of a group that's not opposed to guns, but is looking for responsible ownership and handling of firearms. And that's the way I feel. I am not for restricting the sale or the ownership of guns. I'm a hunter. I'm a target shooter, and I have guns myself. But I am very concerned, and the chief and I talked with this representative, and we talked about one of the things we're losing today is children and even some adults are acquiring guns and don't know how to use them properly, don't know how to handle them properly. And I think this event on Sunday shows that. I was a hunter-trapper education instructor for 15 years, and we taught gun safety. And I can remember stressing very, very hard that you never point a gun at anybody. Treat every gun as if it were loaded. If you don't know how it works, hand it back. Get them to show it to you. Keep your firearms stored in one place, your ammunition in another place, those type things. And the chief and I got talking about this with this representative, and we're looking to put an event on, an educational event, probably later on in the summer, so we get it ironed out. Hopefully maybe in the market house where we can bring in some people. I want to get a hold of the game commission. And we have our firearms instructors with the police department. And there was a program that the NRA ran, Eddie Eagle, and one of our local residents did that for quite a few years out at the fire hall. And we're going to see if they still have that information. But we're gonna try to put together I'll say, a seminar or a question and answer period or some show and tell, and try to educate some people, and hopefully they'll take it home and talk to family members, whatever have you. If we can just stop one more incident like happened this weekend, we will have achieved our goals. So I'll get you that information as soon as we iron it out. And Chief, you have anything?
Just to piggyback on what the mayor stated, this tragedy was 100% preventable. And it's a matter of responsible gun owners taking the steps to secure their firearms. Now, if you do not have a gun locker or a gun safe at home, we do have gun locks here at Station. So please stop in. They are free and readily available. Thank you.
Is there any update have we received any update on the child?
It was put out in the media. The child did make it through surgery, so
Okay.
Stable right now.
Thank you. Workshop items. The first item we have is review and discuss a resolution authorizing a petition to the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board to substitute the Borough of Columbia noise ordinance for the PLCB statutory statute to allow establishments that serve alcohol to have outdoor live music. Who's gonna?
I'll start.
You got it.
Dan is here, Dan Scarberry from Union Station Grill. He approached me last year, I believe it was, Dan, to begin looking at I'll say the waiver process, the relief process required by the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board to allow live music at locations that serve alcohol. Now, I've learned a lot in the last year on this whole process, but I believe the Liquor Control Board, in response to dealing with nuisance bars and clubs, put together a law that says, if you're creating loud, obnoxious noise, your liquor license could be put at risk. Yet on the other side of that, there are many places that would like to be able to have live music during the summer outside and make that a part of the attraction to their venue and place. So Evan has drafted up the resolution to submit to the PLCB a request to allow us to substitute the borough noise ordinance for their code. It still gives us the ability to regulate noise out there, but it's under our rules and regulations. Police and/or code enforcement then can go out and regulate that if it becomes a nuisance, obnoxious, or in any way violates the noise ordinance. So that's what we wanted to talk about tonight is, would we want to move forward with this? And Dan, I know you probably have things you'd like to share with this as to why you think this is important and value to your business.
Yeah, good evening, Council. My name is Aaron Zimmer. I'm an attorney. I do a lot in the liquor space. I've represented Dan for a number of years. I actually represent some other licensees around town, although I'm not here necessarily for them. And Dan let me know that this was coming before Council in the coming weeks, and I thought it would be helpful, and Dan did as well, for us to be here, just provide some context from the licensee standpoint. And I don't want to belabor the issue Council is planning to get to tonight, and I don't want to yammer on here for a while, but I think some background, some context on the noise issue is maybe helpful. So up until last summer, the liquor code had a very sort of simple and straightforward noise sort of ordinance that uniquely applies only to licensees, even where townships and boroughs and municipalities have their own noise ordinance. Licensees are subject to the liquor code, and it said basically, well, not basically, it said that if you had any amplified noise that could be heard off of your premises, it was subject to a violation. And you can imagine in downtown borough city settings, I mean, the curb is the property line. So literally, if somebody opens the door and there's a jukebox or live band or anything else that's playing inside, when that door opens, you can hear it in the street, and that's a violation. And we all think that's sort of silly, but I can assure you there have been citations that have issued from the Liquor Control Enforcement for things as simple as that. And this isn't a knock on them. They're doing their job, and they have a difficult one at times because there are some bad actors out there. There's no question. But in large part, and I think your experience and the experience you've had at Union Station and others in Columbia is that they want to do well. They want to be an asset to the borough. And this noise issue, it's very restrictive. So I said last year they had that more restrictive ordinance. So last summer there was an act that was passed that relaxed a little bit the liquor control boards and the liquor codes noise ordinance, and now they apply. There's a set decibel level. So between a certain number or a certain set of hours, I believe it's during the week, it's 10 a.m. and 9 p.m. You can have amplified sound or amplified noise so long as it doesn't exceed 75 decibels at the property line. But that is a black and white during those particular hours, and they're a little bit different during the week than they are on weekends. The difficulty with that, even the more relaxed standard, which candidly is that the language now in the liquor code is actually a little bit more permissive than Columbia Borough's ordinance. But we still feel the borough's ordinance is a way better solution. And part of the reason for that is a couple of things. Number one, it has exceptions. So there's exceptions to the ordinance. There's a process for variances if someone wanted to request a variance. There's also special permits that can be obtained for particular events and things. There's more flexibility with that ordinance to work with the local municipality in order to be able to have, whether it's special events or even regularly occurring events that don't disrupt the community, but also don't fall into this somewhat black and white box, which is the liquor code of, if you have amplified sound and it can be heard off your property line after a certain hour, you're subject to citation. And Mr. Cybers alluded to it, and really the biggest concern for all of that, the biggest issue from a licensee's perspective with all of that is citations, usually in isolation, are not a big issue for establishments of a liquor license. But an accumulation of citations is the path to basically getting shut down. And good operators sometimes get caught up in that process with the PLCB, and it's gotten, I would say, heightened since COVID. The PLCB and the LCE have made a specific sort of enforcement method, whatever you want to call it, since COVID to pursue the individuals that sort of shirk the rules during that time period. And I make no comments about whether that's right or wrong and whether they should or shouldn't have. But my point is that they have clearly ramped up their enforcement efforts in the last, I would say, 12 months to 24 months. And there's a lot of good folks that have kind of gotten caught up with that for noise issues and any number of other reasons. And in my experience, and I think working with Dan and a number of others, I work with Marietta Borough. They also have exempted some of their municipality from the noise ordinance that the PLCD has, and I think largely it's worked out great. I think for their events on Front Street and their music festivals and things, it's been a great situation for them. But I think it's just a much more sort of reasonable way for these folks to operate. Dan and I were just talking here a moment ago. Tonight's a good example. So Dan has trivia at this place at Union Station tonight. So it's a Tuesday night. So if we apply the liquor code, he could have amplified sound, so he could have trivia on the patio, so long as it didn't exceed 75 decibels at the property line. But there's a hard break at 9 o'clock. So if somebody happened to complain, and if an LCE agent was standing outside at 9:05 and they were wrapping up trivia, that's subject to a citation. And I don't think anybody really wants it to be that way, but I can assure you that is the way the liquor code is enforced. There's not a lot of gray area. There's not a lot of, especially where it's complaint-based, there's not a lot of trying to resolve an issue rather than just issue a citation. And we think, and I think, that in my experience, it's a heck of a lot better when you've got the local folks who are invested in this, working with the municipality, the local police department, and trying to resolve issues rather than, from an enforcement perspective, simply immediately turning to citations and just saying, well, the process will work itself out. It does, but it significantly can jeopardize good operators and their ability to continue on with their business. So we think it's a good idea. I talked to your solicitor last summer when this started to come up and offered any assistance we could. I've been through this process before. As Mr. Stiver said, the borough's inclined to pass a resolution that'll get submitted to the PLCB. There is a hearing at that stage when the information gets presented, but essentially then they just turn over enforcement to the borough, which I think is a much more efficient way to handle it rather than having the state police and the LCE inserted for that limited issue.
One of the concerns that I have, just as an operator, is that, like, for instance, tonight, yes, could I have, trivia out there? We do trivia every Tuesday, all throughout the year. So tonight, trivia is inside, because from my perspective, I don't want to get myself into a situation where it's 9:05 and I do get a citation, or there's an issue in regards to any of that. So what this does is this allows us to work with the borough as opposed to, fearing this opportunity of maybe, being in violation. Because that's the last thing that we want to do is jeopardize our license with any, small type of item like that. So that was the impetus behind this whole conversation a year ago with Mark and solicitor and Aaron. We got Aaron, our attorney, involved in that process as well. I mean, it'd be nice for just to be a vibrant outdoor patio. I'm not talking about, bringing AC/DC in there. I'm talking about acoustic music out on the patio, during dinner, nothing past 9 o'clock or anything like that. We're not looking to do, big blowout type events like that. We're just looking to have a little bit of nuance to this conversation, which with the Liquor Control Board is just very rigid in that process.
Questions?
I think for me, both spelled it out perfectly. I mean, you did a great job explaining, what the dangers are with going with what PLCB is doing. There, like, again, it's black and white. It's cut and dried. There's no gray area. It's black or it's white. It's 9:03. It's 9:03. I mean, I grew up with that. If you walked in the door at 10:03, you were grounded. My dad would say 10:03 is not 10 o'clock, so you're grounded tomorrow. So you had to deal with it. So that's the way it works for them. We want to have somebody, as a town you want to have that vibrancy. You want to have those kind of things where you can hear, you walk by, it's kind of cool to hear some music sometimes. You don't want to hear it blasting at 11 o'clock at night. That's not what you're asking for, either. So
and I can assure the council that we're going to be good stewards of this. Like, we were the ones who actually came, to start the discussion. We would be very grateful for the opportunity to do these types of things, to have trivia on our deck right now. On a summer night, to be out there, not with a big megaphone, but have the guy with his microphone to do trivia outside. So we're going to be a very good steward of this pass.
Isn't there currently a rewrite in process of the noise ordinance and nuisances?
The nuisance ordinance, yeah,
And that pertains to noise.
it would, yeah.
So how can you approve something when you don't know what your ordinance is going to say?
Well, this is for discussion right now, but I do agree with what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. I've been down this road before, several times, in several places. Your establishment one, and I have a concern. And Dan, let me say, I think you're a very responsible business owner, and I do want to support our businesses and see you guys thrive. I think you answered my one question is when you mentioned 9 o'clock. There was music over there once before, and we got bombed from the residents of St. Peter's Apartments. And calling my home, calling the office, calling the police department, it was really a trying time. And I hope it doesn't get to that point again. Like I say, I support businesses. I support having that. As Mark said, we want to have a vibrant town. I support that. But the second part of that question is, having dealt several times with LCE, there are a few bars that aren't here anymore because of our work with LCE. And by taking LCE out of it and having the borough there, not saying you'll do this, but you may not be the owner all the time, or there may be another establishment open up and have this situation, then how do we involve LCE if they're not directly involved to begin with?
I don't mean to jump in there, but maybe I'll answer that question.
I hope you can.
Yeah, so, this exception is limited solely to the noise provision in the liquor code. It has, so there's, I think Mr. Savage mentioned it earlier, there's a nuisance bar program that the LCE and the PLCB has.
Been there.
Yep, and that encompasses way more than just noise. So this doesn't by any means exclude the LCE from its general oversight of basically everything else in the liquor code. The only issue is just, is the noise piece of it, and instead it's regulated by the borough.
And more than likely, thank you for that explanation. You make me feel comfortable. And more than likely, if noise were a part of it, LC, there's more attached to it than just noise.
There's no question, and
LCED.
And Dan can probably talk about this better than I can, but I can tell you if you're on their radar, even if it's just for, if it's just noise complaints or whatever it is, if you're on their radar, particularly if it's a municipality that's contacting them, they will be there looking for more than just a noise issue.
Yeah.
They'll be looking at your records. They'll have undercover agents in there looking for who's being served and believe me, it will be an all hands on approach, and they'll be able to resolve it. This issue it's the only change that it makes is just from a noise standpoint. It takes out of the PLCB's jurisdiction the enforcement or their ability to issue a citation solely based on noise. It does not prevent the borough from enforcing its statute. In fact, that's what it would do. It would, I don't mean to say that it's the borough's problem then, but it is their ability to then enforce it. And in this particular case, as I said earlier, I'm looking at the borough's ordinance now. It talks about a 9 p.m. cutoff, and it is more restrictive. In the downtown commercial district, which Union Station is in, it's 67 decibels at the property line. The PLCB's is 75. So we're here ironically asking for a more restrictive noise ordinance that applies, but a more, I think, palatable enforcement sort of process.
Well, council doesn't know what the end result of that ordinance change
Sure.
would be. It could remain 67 and 9 o'clock could, but it may change. But thank you for those explanations. I support what you want to do, and hopefully it can be worked out. And I think you made one comment. You worked with this in the beginning. You're going to be the poster child for this. Hopefully you'll set it the table for everybody else.
Aaron's here with us. Aaron worked with the borough initially to even, begin this process. We're obviously invested in this process just by means of my retention with Aaron. This is something that we have always worked towards a cooperation with the borough. We've been there 17 years. We're always have tried to work in cooperation with the borough. And so that's, I stand on the record as saying that I want to be a good steward of this program, because if you're going to allow this opportunity for us, I don't want to be the one who stands in front of you and saying, Mayor, I see you at breakfast one morning. You said, Dan, you brought this up. You dropped the ball. That's not something that's going to happen from our perspective. I'm just looking for a little bit of ability to be a little bit more vibrant in my outdoor patio. That I do remember that I was not, me personally at the time. My partner was at the time involved in that.
Yeah, I won't blame you for that.
But I was not even there. I had no idea about that. But there have been times prior to that where, like, some of the individuals from across the street would sit in lawn chairs out there and listen to acoustic music on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
So I do remember that event. I had nothing to do with that, in full disclosure, and it was a previous partner at the time. But there have been parts where those individuals across the street actually sit out on their lawn chairs and enjoy the music.
We actually discussed that a little bit amongst ourselves before we started the meeting. Yeah, that's.
It was great. I mean, it
That's
seemed like it was like
great.
lawn chairs outside, listening, sitting on their side of the street, listening,
Yeah, that's great.
so.
I'll add two other things and then I'll leave it at that. But Mayor, to your comments, so two things that may give council some things to think about as you approach this and perhaps take action on this, this ordinance. One is, it's not like an all or nothing thing for the entire borough. In fact, I believe one of the things the PLCB requires is that you submit a map with the information you give to them that identifies the area of the borough that you want to exempt. So it doesn't have to be all of the limits and the territorial limits of the borough if you felt it was appropriate to isolate a section like a downtown area. The other thing is, I believe, don't quote me on the time period, but I believe it's 2 years. When you file and get the exemption from the PLCB, they grant it for 2 years and then it needs to be renewed. So it's not like a once and done and now you're in and there's no way back out. It is something that's renewable, so if it would be an issue, if it would cause more problems than what council is willing to accept, it can expire. Or I believe the PLCB would also let you, I would imagine, terminate it early. I've never been down that road, but my point is just that it's not a, we're in for the next century kind of thing. So for what it's worth.
That's, you really got me thinking. And I don't want to drag this on, but I'm the one who got the phone calls. Can this be constructed that each business applying for this is approved? In other words, each business must get approval, not a blanket approval within the community.
I guess technically, but the way Marietta did it, and I agree with Eric, they designated an area, which Marietta's map
Well,
is
I don't
is the
think-
entire borough. So any business within the borough would fall under that. And I looked it up as 3 year.
Well, that's restrictive enough for me.
Yeah.
But I didn't want someone somewhere say, no, well, now I can do this anywhere.
Mhm.
And then we're chasing them around.
They can do it currently.
Right.
We're restricted based on the liquor license. So they could do it currently at another business, correct?
Today, yeah.
At any other type of business.
Yeah, so the only,
This is only for anyone who has a liquor license.
correct. Yeah, if you didn't
So
have
we're
that.
going to show that,
If you're a BYOB.
we're going to show that separation. That's kind of where I was headed.
So I'm just trying to understand your question,
He's
Mayor.
saying this is only for those who have the liquor license.
Correct. This is a petition to the
By this
LC,
particular
PLCB,
business.
GD.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, by this particular business.
Yes, yes.
Okay? Now, that's there.
No.
If another
No,
business,
I don't mean to interrupt you.
No.
You're asking for the whole.
So it's actually the borough that has to petition. It's
Right.
not, like, we couldn't do this on our own.
Right.
It is
Okay.
the borough or the municipality that has to ask for the
that's what I need
exemption.
to understand.
Yeah.
So it applies only to businesses within the borough or within a portion of the borough that have a liquor license. So, for example, it could apply to Union Station, Kettle Works, and Starview. We can define in the downtown area or maybe include Lancaster Distillery, kind of that core area.
I would ask council as you review this, think about that.
I think you're missing one point there. We have and will have a more robust, hopefully, noise ordinance in existence. It pertains to everybody. They're neighbors already. So their neighbor who lives in the house beside them can come out and play music
Play
while they
music, so-
want to a certain period of time.
That's one point, yeah.
So they're just saying, hey, no different for us.
Mhm.
So I don't think you have to restrict it anywhere because we have an ordinance in place.
The key factor here is they're trying to protect their liquor license.
Right.
That's,
Mhm.
that's the
Exactly.
whole point of this. They're willing to go down the road of stricter rules without having to risk, if there's a slight infraction, which could happen, has happened according to you, protect their liquor license so they don't wind up losing it for something silly. That I can respect. And I think that Dan and has shown to be proven to be a responsible business owner. Good restaurant, good history there.
Well, I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Mhm.
Just like I said, in the beginning, I
Yeah.
support this.
It's not like they're looking at the other privilege. The other piece of this is we, the police department, are going to need the equipment. And I'm not saying we may have, we're going to need it for dance sets, but for anywhere, because this just came up recently. And we didn't have the equipment or the training to uphold that. So you may see that following this ordinance in your budget.
Yeah, there was something else
Honestly, I
that came
think
up.
you need to look at the ordinance from less about a standpoint of the decibel reading. The department in the past has run into issues with not having proper technology, not having proper
Right.
training. So it truly is opening a can of worms if that's what your sole enforcement measure is. All right? There has to be some other measure that we look at based on complaints or something along those lines.
Yeah, we had that recently.
Time
with
of
another.
day.
Try to think of some creative wording or some other way of evaluating it rather than just using a decibel meter to say yes or
We
no.
ran into that, the last one I can remember was out at the watch the clock.
Yeah, yeah.
Their air conditioning.
I heard you mention Marietta did this. Are there any other boroughs or townships nearby that have?
Wrightsville.
Wrightsville Borough has done it in there yet. Have you
Yeah,
done that?
I'm aware Lancaster City, has done it. They enforce their own noise ordinance. And I believe Effort Borough may have done it as well. I'm less certain about that one. They had some years ago. I know Lancaster City does. I have a number of clients in town. I'm familiar with them, but, Wrightsville is another one that I know Marietta. I don't know about Mount Joy.
So I don't know if I have this all straight. So with the noise ordinance, what they're doing and what anybody in the borough can do would all fall under that noise ordinance if they violated it.
Yeah.
So then with the police department, how do you see this change? How do you see that affecting the police department as a whole? We would have to purchase more equipment. How do you intend to enforce the noise ordinance for establishments that do not have liquor license?
I see challenges if you look at the decibel reading. I see challenges in court. I think however you enact or write the ordinance, maybe it needs to be less specific, as far as decibel readings. I mean, Dan is absolutely correct. I mean, as a responsible business owner, I feel confident that I can go to Dan and say, we have received a number of complaints this evening. Would you please turn the music down? And he and or his management staff would take care of it. But that may not necessarily be the case at all businesses. So, we would have to file citations based on the complaints, the noise ordinance complaints. So crafting language is key. I think Kelly alluded to that.
For council's benefit, I looked at the noise ordinance just in advance of tonight, and there really are, as I see it, and as I was looking at it from a licensee's perspective, there's sort of two things. There's the more objective decibel reading that is built into the noise ordinance, but then there's a more general definition and a prohibition against anyone creating what is defined as a noise disturbance, which is I think to Chief Brommer's point, a much more generic. It says if it endangers the health of animals or humans, or if it annoys or disturbs a reasonable person of normal sensitivity. So I think that's your more generic complaint-based one. Again, I don't know what council's looking to do in terms of modifying this, but I think as it exists now, there is both the, I'll say, more subjective reasonable person and objective decibel reading standard that exists.
Anyone else with questions?
So let's say an establishment, we go down this road. We are now responsible for enforcing a noise ordinance for us, establishments that have a liquor license. And it gets out of control. They get citations, they don't comply. Do we then have the ability to go to the liquor control board and say, these guys are a problem, can you please reject their license? Because ultimately, that's what they're trying to do right now, right? You get a few citations and they take your license. You're trying to avoid that. But there may be cases where we want to encourage that. Is that what you're alluding to earlier?
We're actually trying to avoid it by running like the whole other side of the room.
Right.
As opposed to like finding, like, rather than me trying to work trivia outside tonight, I'm just not gonna do it, I'm just gonna put it inside. Because I don't even want to even go close to that.
But my question is, do we have the option to go to LCV, see?
LCV.
Liquor control enforcement.
LCV, I can think of the
Yeah.
short.
Enforcement.
We do, Todd, and as I alluded to earlier, if it gets to that point, as far as the liquor control board is concerned, there will be other violations.
Yeah.
Yeah, when noise gets to a certain point, other things
There's
follow.
other things going on.
Yeah. So I feel comfortable there. I don't feel comfortable with decibel alone. Yeah. And I think that's why there was kind of a two-part. Because, okay, I've seen it. Okay, it exceeded 68 decibels for what length of time?
Mhm.
Did you read it once, and that was one blip, and it was, and try to prove it, you needed a length of time and all that. It's very cumbersome to try to do that.
It is.
An ordinance that says if you're disturbing the quality of life of folks nearby, you got an issue. Something to that effect.
Right, you got one person that's calling in complaining, that's one thing. You got 10 people calling in complaining, that's a whole other story.
Right, and we've done that in the past. We get one person calling, okay, is it someone who doesn't like their neighbor? Is this a fact or not? If there's, as you said, Kelly, if there's 10 people calling in, you look at it, you listen to it, the officer sits nearby, yeah, they can do something about it. And I agree. Sometimes it takes 5-10 minutes or something like that to shut down and close up, That's the way it works.
And Mayor, to your point, I mean, in the current arrangement, that example is a really relevant one in the sense that you do sometimes have that one neighbor who's upset and whatever. And instead of calling the local police who come out and try and have a conversation and work with the parties, they call the LCE, and the LCE shows up on a complaint base, and they do, an investigation. And if it's 9:05, you're getting a citation. And again, in isolation, it's not the end of the world. But as Dan said, what it does basically is it forces as the business owner to make a decision. I can't jeopardize my livelihood, my license. So I just have to withdraw, and I can't do anything with live music or with outside amplified sound, and it's really not what anybody wants. But
If someone's playing a song and it's 9 o'clock, just cut the song off. You finish the song, that's common sense. And that's where we're headed. And that's, you're right. LCE will be.
okay.
I grew up in a hotel family.
Do you have a time for weekends, like Fridays, Saturday nights?
In the current borough ordinance, I'm not sure that it makes a distinction, at least from what I looked at. I think I saw that it just says 9 o'clock. So it does not vary for the weekends.
Anyone else with further questions?
Let me end my, thank you for doing this. Let me say this, quite a few years ago, it's been now, Borough Council crafted a tattoo parlor ordinance. And part of the success of that, you remember this, don't you, Kelly?
Yep.
Part of the success of that is one of our local tattoo artists helped craft the ordinance. And it made a difference because they put ownership into what was happening
And I think you're doing the same thing.
Yeah, I can't take care of him and then work with Mark and come here and face all of you and then not do what I said I was going to do. Like that, I'm not going to do.
No, I mean, coming in and helping craft
No,
something.
no.
It may be to your benefit, but helping craft it for the community. I commend
Well, there's
you.
other businesses that will benefit from this.
Yeah, but I commend you for taking that step and doing it.
Instead of just testing the waters and see what happens.
Yeah.
Say, hey, this could happen, so let's try to be proactive instead of reactive. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys. So is this something council would like to see us bring forward soon, or do you want to have more discussions on it?
Bring it forward.
I'd like to take it forward.
Yeah,
We have to wait for the news.
yeah, I
Well,
mean.
Do we? I mean, it's, we have our noise ordinance in place. We can review that and look at it.
Yeah. I'd say-
We have a nuisance ordinance and nuisance sections already. I don't think we're inhibited for enforcing anything now. I think our ordinance is just going to improve our ability, but I wouldn't necessarily hold this up for that.
I agree.
Does it make some sense to get some feedback from the enforcement wing of the PLC?
Aaron, do you
As
know
far as that,
context?
I don't know what
We're
I'm.
gonna have to make an application, and so I'm sure there's gonna be some conversation with the applicant.
I mean, like, as far as, are they having issues with other people that have done it, you mean, or?
Yeah, just to,
How's,
see if there are any
how's it going with the
issues,
others that they've approved already?
yeah, how's it going? How's it working?
I can reach out to them. I have no problem with that.
I guess I would like more details on how it's going to affect the Columbia Police Department. And then maybe some general things of what we could be looking at.
Depends on how you
Are we
read
gonna
that.
end up with needing more people here, hiring more people, more shifts? I don't know. I would like more information on how it would affect them.
I think, I know the times that Leo was talking about way back when we had a lot of bad characters. And Jack knows what I'm talking about as well, was going way back when I last served on council. But, and I'm not saying that can't change, but I think we have a totally different atmosphere in town. I think it holds a totally different type of business owner and what they're trying to accomplish. And like I said, what business owner wants to jeopardize losing their business over something as, like I said, at any time we want, we can call LCE and get them in here and make their life difficult. So what responsible business owner, not just responsible, what business owner wants to put themselves in that position?
I don't think that there would be a significant impact on our police department compared to what there is now. I mean, because they have to enforce a noise ordinance all over town as it is. So I don't see it, increasing their need significantly for.
Kelly put it right. This is a different Columbia.
And like I said, if let's face it, if there's somebody's got a bar that's making a lot of noise, they're not calling LCE first. They're calling you first, Yeah, absolutely. I don't see where it's
Once
gonna.
upon a time, when I had another job,
Oh,
I used to do the noise ordinance. I used to do the noise studies. And they're very cumbersome.
they're paying.
Their time, their length of time and everything, their graphs and everything else to prove that your mean was a certain level. If Evan can,
Yeah, I know.
craft some language that I would be glad to see you leave that
Yeah, I
out.
think we need to look at the noise ordinance.
Mhm.
Any decibel level. It's gonna put a strain on the department.
And I can reach out to the city and Marietta and see, how much of an issue this has been for them, because Marietta has had it since 19. I don't know how, do you know how long the city's had theirs? Probably for a while.
It's been some time. They did it as part of some of the larger events and things they wanted to have downtown, it's just easier for them to enforce.
So like, theirs is limited to a certain geographic locations, but ours would not be.
I think it's the opposite. Marietta, they designated their entire borough.
Oh,
Well,
they
we
did?
said we would designate just kind of the downtown area.
What about, like, they're planning on, they probably won't have liquor down there, like, when the River Park falls and it has the big stadium, like auditorium that we're hoping to, would it affect that at all?
I would include that in the exemption area.
Yeah, that's in there. Yeah, they do a special event.
All right, anything else?
Good.
Nope, all right, moving
Thanks,
on.
guys.
Thank you. Review and discuss an ordinance to amend chapter 220 zoning, to amend the table of uses and dimensional requirements for the light business district.
Okay, so I'll pull it up on the screen so we have it. This is the code sections that Rick Jackson identified initially when we were looking at and evaluating the McGinnis tract. So he had recommended some text changes to a few areas in the light business zone. One, in looking at the description of and the purpose of the district. He wanted us to make sure we took out anything that related to the old use, continuation of the airport, etc., and make it just generic to encourage development within a district.
Now, the words provides for in there
Yeah,
should also be struck.
this should have been struck out, and I just missed it when I was kind of going through the underlining strikeout section, so that'll come out.
Why would you delete to provide?
Because it doesn't read right,
Read right.
and provide for encourages the development is improper grammar. So it was just just didn't strike out enough. No, it was just missed it in the strikeout. In the table of uses, the only change was to allow a parking lot as a principal use. And that is in some of the design concepts, there was a possibility of having a parking lot on a separate lot. And we want to make sure that that's allowed as a principal use in that district, should that scenario be required for out there. The big changes really came into the dimensional table, where the original language said that there was a 5-acre minimum tract that could be further subdivided. And that's kind of awkward language in a use table, a dimensional table. So we said, let's just leave it at what it could be, and that takes it down to 20,000 square feet, which is what the end result would have been anyway. It just gets rid of that 5-acre minimum tract to be further subdivided, to clear up that language. The lot width, we took it from 80 down to 50. I think it allows for just more flexibility in any lots that are subdivided off in that tract. Minimum front yard setbacks we took down to 0, just to allow it to be pushed up to the sidewalk if the building so wants to be. It gives them flexibility on their site to if they want to move them up, they can. If they want to push them back, they can. The idea there was the site right where the old house used to be. We wanted the ability to have a second level, if you will, a second story, come right out to the sidewalk along Manor Street. So if you're walking down Manor Street, you could just enter right into a store or something right there and not have to be set back 20 feet off the back. Rear yard stays the same, and it has a footnote 3, so I added it in there so you guys understand what it is. There's an additional setback if it's adjacent to a principal residential use. And that's something that we have talked about to the residents out there, that we want to protect, kind of buffer the residents adjacent to this site. So that stays in there. That is not being touched. That'll remain in the code. And side yard setback, we dropped down to 0 because often in industrial areas, you want to be able to put your building right on the side lot line. So again, just to add flexibility in design. And then we increased the maximum allowed lot coverage from 40% up to 85% to maximize potential development out there. And these aren't standards that are uncommon in an industrial or redevelopment for a business park area.
Mark, why would you allow a parking lot as a principal use? When, to me, that seems like you're taking away, light industrial space. Industrial space is putting a parking lot in it, which technically doesn't generate.
It would allow,
revenue.
I think what I took out of it was, whether I'm right or wrong, you can tell me now, but maybe in doing the subdivisions, I would say, the plot of land that was left, or the specific area that the business wanted to be in, the road's already there, but there's not enough parking for them where they want to put their building here, but you just literally have to walk across the street to get into their parking area. I think that's how I saw it as being a principal use, because that's all that particular area of that lot would be parking for that business, which is adjacent to it or across.
businesses,
Yeah,
Okay,
correct.
I can understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seemed funny to me to take business land and make a parking lot out of it.
So the way I looked at it
But
is,
I understand Kelly's explanation.
if there was a potential to develop a shared parking lot that multiple businesses could use, that might be on a separate lot. Then all the businesses in the area could have access to it. And I think we wanted to have that ability. That's all.
Flexibility.
Yeah, flexibility. And those are the only changes to that section. All the rest is the legal language for
Just
that.
wanted service, it did make sense.
Sure. So are there any questions or concerns about us moving this one forward?
Are there any text amendments needed for allowable uses or anything like that?
No, the only one was the parking lot. Everything else that we have in the zone, we feel like is appropriate. And something else that comes in wasn't considered, they can ask for relief at that time. But the zone was honestly, when we really dug into it, was set up for this purpose years ago. I think, Mary, you probably were around on the planning commission when this was done. I think they did a good job building the light business zone. It really targets exactly what we're aiming at here.
Any other questions, comments, concerns?
Is the minimum lot area a typical minimum for light business areas?
Some places have gotten rid of them altogether to allow full flexibility. I think a 20,000 square foot lot, it's just shy of a half acre. You're not going to get a business that's going to need something that small.
Right.
So I think it gives lots of flexibility.
Yep.
Most industrial areas are looking for 1 to 5 acre pieces.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I didn't want to box this in.
Yeah.
Just leave the flexibility in there.
Any other questions? Okay. Next, review and discuss an ordinance to amend chapter 220 zoning, to amend the official zoning map, to amend the boundary of the conservation zone to include additional lands located on borough-owned property.
Good evening, Borough Council. I'm Jessica Fieldhouse. I work with CS Davidson, the Borough Engineer's Office. So I worked with Manager Stivers on preparing this zoning amendment. So the origin of this amendment comes from the site development master plan that the borough did for the McGinnis site several years back. Can we see what? Yeah, we can. I think I can see sort of that.
Can you find the cursor?
See it? So what you're looking at right now is the existing boundary between the light business and the green, the conservation area. And Mark, if you scroll down, what you see here is the additional green areas north of that red initial boundary line. Those all make up the areas that were identified on the McGinnis site development plan as those areas that were set aside for cultural and or recreational significance. So what we want to do here with the zoning ordinance is amend these boundary lines so that they match up with what we believe the most current development pattern will be for McGinnis. Additionally, while we're going through and we're making this change, to improve other areas, if you take a look at where Avenue Y and Penn Street is. Just south of Penn Street, you see a kind of a funky shaped triangular and rectangular property. Looks like two properties. Those are all one property owned by Thomas and Deborah Steiner. It's a residential property. It is currently non-conforming in the light business zoning district. So one of the things we're also doing in order to clean this up, and it matches, here, would you do that for me? And it matches a subdivision that the borough currently has.
So this area here.
That area there will be rezoned from light business to medium density residential, and it will incorporate the Steiner's existing property, but more so when this subdivision that is in the planning stages now is completed, that will fully incorporate what we intend the Steiner's property to be, because correct me if I'm wrong, and I haven't been involved in this subdivision, but we're doing a land swap, correct?
Yeah.
So Steiner's property is gonna be medium density residential.
So he'd be a conforming use for his property.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
He talked to me this morning about that.
Yep.
Right now, he has to get a variance or something like that.
Right now, he's in the light business zone. Yeah.
So Planning Commission did review this proposed zoning district boundary modification at their last meeting and did recommend that it go to council for review and then for recommendation to formally send it to the Lancaster County Planning Department and start the adoption schedule. So at your next meeting, which is the 11th, you'll have this, but along with it, you'll also have the proposed amendment and other materials that we intend on submitting. And I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
You know, especially on there, the change in that border there, I think, like you said, it kind of aligns with, what we talked about years ago when Mary and I served on council together, was that's like more or less the undevelopable, rugged area of that property, which it's going to be, cost prohibitive for somebody to go in there and try to develop that.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes more sense to have it conservation.
And that'll line up with the
Hopefully a
boundary
trail or
lines of
something,
the
yeah.
industrial park versus
Yeah.
land that borough wants to keep.
Yeah.
That's designating that conservation also helps us with our MS4.
It queues us up to get credits for that. We have talked about doing a restoration project on Strickler Run, and possibly even extending it further east and then go all the way to the river. So I think it sets us up for that project. It also gave us credibility with the State Historic Preservation Office, because it's in that general green area that some of the artifacts were found. We want to be able to preserve that area and not disturb it. So
It'll be important in the future for stormwater on the business area.
right, absolutely.
Very,
Yep.
absolutely.
Yeah, and I've been talking to one of the West Hempfield Township supervisors. We've been chatting for a while now. They're interested, along with Mountville Borough, of seeing if all of us could work together to do restoration on Strickler Run from where it starts. Because I guess that the field where Strickler Run actually starts is in the process of being purchased by the Susquehanna Waldorf School that's in Mountville. They're going to build a new school building.
Mm-hmm.
So that would go right through their property, and they would be interested in using that as an educational opportunity as well. So there's a whole lot of opportunity with Strickler Run for us. But yeah, been talking with what's his name, Rob Monroe.
Yeah, the school's gonna be built in the back of that farm.
Yeah.
It has to keep the ponds and geese on.
Yep. Yeah, so that would be wonderful if Mountville, West Hempfield, and Columbia would work together on Strickler Run.
Absolutely. If you're downstream and you do a conservation project, but the people upstream don't do the project, they can just wipe out your project.
Exactly.
It's ridiculous.
Exactly.
We've been talking for years about getting together and doing watershed, not just pieces.
Yes. Yep.
Good conversation.
Yeah, I like Rob. He's a good guy. We get along. Actually, I think I get along with all the West Enfield supervisors. All right, anything else on this one?
So that'll be coming back on the 11th.
If council is okay with that, we'll bring it back on the 11th.
And then, yeah, we have to, yeah, can we just make sure that we do both of them in the same meeting?
Mhm.
So I only have to do a hearing once. I don't want to have to do a hearing like me.
Sure can.
Yep. And then next item, discussion on installing sidewalks in the 1100 block of Bridge Avenue. Councilperson Bernard, I heard this is yours.
Yeah, you may recall a year or so, maybe more, ago, somebody from the development up there, what's the name of the development? Yeah. Stamen, asked us about, installing sidewalks, Bridge Avenue at that location, where the, new, where the bridge is, and the new public works facility is going to be. Particularly, their complaint was walking dogs, it's very unsafe there, there's no sidewalk. People have to maybe go a little faster than they should through the little corridor. And I was wondering, now that we've got a project going on there, does it make sense for us to consider installing sidewalks in that area?
But the thing is, Ty, where are the sidewalks going to begin and where are they going to end? That you're going to have a piece of sidewalk, and once you go down that piece of sidewalk, you're back in the road again, either way.
And Mayor, you're exactly right. And that's one of my pet peeves for a long time is when you're walking on a sidewalk and it just stops. So if the sidewalk extends on the southern side all the way to the, I'll say the entrance, the old entrance way back into the property and stops there and then picks up again here on Stamen and Ridge. So if we kept the sidewalk on the south side and ran it all the way along this frontage to this intersection, tied it in here, then we would have a consistent set of sidewalk all the way out.
But even half of, once you get past the two properties
Back of the Viggies.
in back of the Viggies, there's one property on the opposite side of the street that has a sidewalk, but none of the other ones do. So we're still in a situation, because then you're at the hill of the animal shelter.
Yeah,
so we're still at a sidewalk to nowhere.
Yeah, and so there's the one that starts right there. It continues down. If I would turn around the other way, it doesn't complete the entire system, but it closes in a gap, and it does connect two sections of sidewalk together. So I think there's still improvements that are needed on this. If you go on the south side, the bridge already has sidewalk on it, so you can connect right into that and keep going down. And this would be about where our driveway would come out for the Public Works building. And so it takes it up to the next intersection where there is sidewalk over here.
Hopefully the bridge is wide enough for sidewalks.
No, but if you put a crosswalk here, at least get you to, and it connects sidewalk to sidewalk. So it's not a perfect, but at least it I would say fills in the problem, which to me, and I agree, the problem is this stretch right here has nothing. So it improves the sidewalk condition out there.
It's weird to have sidewalk that doesn't begin somewhere and end somewhere, But if you don't start it, you're never going to get in.
That's my thought.
Didn't we all agree the borough wasn't going to be responsible for sidewalks?
Yeah, that's my question. Are the property owners still going to pay for this?
Well, I just brought up the discussion, how do you figure out a sidewalk solution? I'm not saying that we have to pay for it.
Have an ordinance.
I'm saying we do own a portion of that frontage, correct?
We will, yeah.
We will, so.
We will.
Does the ordinance say if you buy property, you are responsible for sidewalk on that property.
Well,
So we're
you are
responsible for
only
each section.
responsible for putting a sidewalk in if there's sidewalk on either side.
Well, if we put it in, I think this borough, it's probably a
And ours,
responsible thing to do.
well, in ours,
At least for
Where-
our section. Well, let me finish.
okay,
What does it mean to perhaps maybe offer economies of scale solutions to folks on either side to get the sidewalks done? The problem with that is there's really nothing there for the most part. So there's no advantage for the property owner to spend money for a sidewalk when there's no building there. Big problem is when they built that development, they cut down the cost of the houses, roll curves in.
yeah, I know,
Yeah.
that's awful. You like that? Oh, you now scratch up your limbs.
It's like down on Salisbury Street where you're walking down sidewalks and then there's nothing.
Yeah.
And then you get another sidewalk.
So all we have to do is put sidewalk in every other property and then
Everyone
else has to.
has to
fill in.
connect.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good idea to consider at least
That was
our
a joke.
portion of it. And maybe if we, once everyone sees how it looks, maybe they would want to.
So wait a minute. Our portion of it
It's gonna be 50 feet.
is mostly going to be a curb cut
Curb cut, yeah.
for a driveway. So what, are we gonna put like 5 feet of sidewalk on either side of our driveway? That's seems kind of pointless to me.
So where, Mark, if you go back to that one with the red.
Mhm.
So where's our land?
It's gonna be right in here,
Okay,
that little piece.
and that's where the
If-
driveway's gonna come out.
Yeah, if you go back to the bigger one, I know this is hard to see. The one sidewalk extends about to here. Then from here down to the corner, there's nothing. Down this way, there's nothing. There's sidewalk picks up on the other side of the street for a little bit, and it's kind of haphazarded out through this area. Again, it doesn't fix everything, but I kind of like where Todd was going. Let's at least have a discussion. There seems to be, people using this area and walking in this area. What can we do to make it safer?
There is a lot of walkers in
There is, yeah, and we want to encourage that.
We're gonna have a permanent presence down there too now.
I just, looking at it from the standpoint of, the property owner, and looking at the properties, it would be really difficult and costly to do it on the north side, just looking at what is there. But then if you, on the south side, then you tell a homeowner or, the owner of those apartments, you gotta put a sidewalk in the whole length of here without having to do it across the street. That doesn't seem fair either.
That's a good point.
Yeah, Mary, go ahead. I'm trying to motion to you. Like, go on up there, Mary.
Okay, with the traffic today, I actually came through the development to try.
Oh, boy.
So what I actually saw up there is most of the actual homes up there do have sidewalk in front of them. So where your gap would be between the borough property would be totally around those apartments, because you get onto the first houses there on Stamen Lane and there are sidewalks.
Mhm.
And there's sidewalks there, like Mark said about connecting across, at the intersection of Stamen and Ridge. Yeah, there's sidewalk there, but the gap would be there around those apartments. Other than that, those houses have sidewalks up there. there, especially on Standing and Ridge.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, and I mean, that's what I'm saying, like, how can we tell the owner of the apartments, you gotta put a sidewalk in the whole length of this?
well, again, it's one of those, when the
Yeah.
apartments are sold, that's part of it, they got to put the sidewalk in, because you'd have it there, and you've got the house.
The borough put sidewalk in their property.
I'm not going to.
And the sidewalk, as Mary said, I don't go up Standing at all. I go up Ridge. But if there's sidewalk past the apartment, then you'll have sidewalk on either side of the property. You gotta put sidewalk.
Yeah, on Stamen and Ridge, there's
Economy of
sidewalk.
Scale, if you do it with the economy of scale, it's gonna be a hard sell, but you're never gonna get anywhere unless you do it.
It's on both sides
Well,
of the street.
really, I mean, it's one property owner that is gonna be affected.
Yeah.
One.
If we put it on both sides, it would also be across the street where Doug's Tree Service is. I mean, it'd be in that side as well. If you want to run it down both sides of that one block of Ridge. But it's something we could talk about, but, you know, which side do you want it on and how do you want it done? I just like the idea of looking at the possibility of connecting these areas together so you can walk them safely.
It is possible because, I mean, Derek knows how much.
So much linear foot.
Mhm.
I think that means we can help you make your own mind. So the impact.
What are you thinking, Eric?
I'm not thinking anything.
Mm,
I'm totally against it, so.
Yeah.
So,
The other thing I'm looking at is, I mean, we can connect that section. And that does give some walkability there. I mean, that is a bad spot. But then if you look up Ridge further towards, like, there's no sidewalk from 9th
Mhm.
basically down to 11th, except for that last property on, and the 900 block of Ridge, it's the
north side has some.
the 900 block of Ridge, the properties are facing Mifflin. So their addresses are Mifflin, and if we would ask for sidewalk, they would have to put sidewalk at the rear of their property, which no one else has to do in
Right.
town.
Mm.
If we wanted to connect that, the whole thing.
Yeah, because you're right.
Good point.
Starting at 9th Street, there's nothing.
There's nothing the whole way down through there.
Could you get a pedestrian line?
I was just thinking the same thing, paint a white line.
Pin a white line,
Paint a solid white line.
And put them
We do
Them
that, is that
little-
an easy fix?
some little white stick figures on there.
Instead of a bike path, a little walking path.
Right.
Yeah.
That's an easy fix. The concern is, folks were here, several folks came here, maybe more than one occasion, I know one occasion, complaining about safety issues
Mhm.
on that little stretch. And it makes sense, it's a wide street, people do zoom through there. I've done it too, probably too often. It's easy to do because there's a lot of road. Is it easy enough just to put a stripe to allow people to feel a little safer or be a little safer? Maybe
Well,
coffee-
I think the
traffic
whole way to
calming
the
measures.
I think the whole way to the night.
Except for parking. Parking would be an issue.
Isn't it parking? Is it?
You can park
You can
along
park on the
any
side.
street.
Yeah.
You'd have to regulate parking.
You can park along right here?
Mhm.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yep. Mhm. All right. Any other thoughts? Yes, Frank? Mhm. The only thing is, thinking about that though, we would have to get Derek to make sure, I mean, that would basically, we'd have to make sure that there's the width, the travel lanes are adequate.
The white line, parking, and then 2 lanes.
Yes, Frank?
I missed some of what was said, but again, what is the purpose or what is the reason that we're going to do this up there?
Safety.
Safety, pedestrian.
Pedestrian safety.
Remember when they did 462, the curb and sidewalk in town here, they going back, I'm sure a lot of us remember that. We have some people that didn't pay. Are they still on the books for Owen?
Some of them are, yes.
Are they on the books, yeah, okay. And who would pay for this curb and sidewalk? Does homeowners pay for this?
Property owner. Property owner.
According to the ordinance.
Okay, yeah, of course. If you do that, or if they do that, don't make the mistake that was done on the Ironville Pike. Out there where they're at right now, where you want to do this, where's the mailboxes? Are they out at the curb?
No,
They have to deliver the mail back into the properties?
well, it's the
apartment complex.
It's the apartment complex, and they have one big,
Yeah, but there's properties before that, isn't it?
no,
Oh, it isn't? Okay. Well, while we're on the subject, what happened up there, they didn't make the payment wide enough. You have your mailboxes sticking back in, and then when you're walking up there with a couple, they gotta get over and back to the other one to walk. Well, we didn't see that when we come to these meetings, we didn't know that, and then that ended up being a problem. Well, then we go to the post office, and they just laughed at us. No, we're not delivering to the house. That's really a problem. So if they do that, or how you're going to do it, I would hope, that really put the mailboxes in the payment wide enough. It's just a thought that I was sitting here thinking about that. Okay, you actually helped my question. I appreciate it.
thank you. All right, anything further on this? I'm gonna revisit it again. What are we gonna,
Yeah, then Mark was gonna get some cost estimates and whatever. I see it's a very difficult nut to crack, probably an impossible solution. But there may be some workarounds, painted white lines, who knows, cheap alternatives. I think it's important that we at least talk about it, discuss it, don't concern the taxpayers, right? Don't take a whole lot about it.
if we decide to go that way though, I would really like to see it happen sooner rather than later. Because I remember sitting here when I first got on this seat and we were talking about improvements to Manor Street for traffic calming and what we were gonna do, and we had plans and it never happened. So, yeah,
Needs to happen.
yeah,
There were 2 accidents out there recently,
really.
ninth and Manor. 2 accidents. Guy just talked to me this morning about that, so when you want to do that work?
Yeah, so,
What intersection was that?
well, they said it was
Ninth and
Ninth and Manor, but the work we were talking about, that I remember them having,
It was going to be paint, basically creating a boulevard effect.
yeah, paint and, trees were traffic calming, which is basically in the area of McGinnis. Yeah.
My only thought back on Ridge, as far as painting, is I don't want to do something that looks, I don't know, what the cheap fix, so to speak. I would rather do it right and do it so that it looks good. People want to walk on it.
Mm.
Um,
You're right, I was just in a municipality, I can't remember what municipality it was. But they use the PennDOT, suggestion, and they have everything painted green on trails and crossings and things like that. You would, I forget where it was,
Yeah.
and you go in there and you can see it right away. There's a walkway, because it's painted green.
yeah.
Yeah. All right, we'll see if we can get some estimates and bring it back for another discussion.
Thank you.
Council, member comments, Councilperson Bedard,
I have nothing.
Councilperson Fisher.
Nothing.
Yeah, I have one thing I want to bring up, not that we can do anything about it tonight because it's not on the agenda. We have a public health issue going on in town that needs to be addressed, in my opinion. There has been an explosion or a major increase in the amount of defecation and urination on public properties. Our church, which is the stone's throw from here, we have been cleaning up for months now, backpacks and you name it. I'm not going to describe it, but this past weekend was the final straw in my book. That's why I felt I had to bring it up tonight. Was somebody literally did their business on the top, in the second to last step before you go in our front entrance to their church, and left everything behind, shall we say? And our minister asked us what to do. I said, I am through with it. I'm not cleaning it up anymore. Somebody else could do it. So, I've talked to businesses. I know Wilson could probably attend to what's going on at the bus stops and things you're finding there. I know Don Murphy has mentioned to me, and some other businesses have mentioned to me about things they're finding like in the little alcove area there at 315 Locust Street. It's not just, it's a lot of places, alleyways, etc. But it's really concentrated around the downtown core. It's going to negatively affect the borough. It's going to negatively affect the businesses, and it certainly is a public health issue to have to put up with this on a daily basis. I mean, this is getting out of hand. I certainly don't think we need to put an ordinance or anything like that in place for it, because we certainly have things in place through the public health ordinance that deal with this. But I talked to somebody about it. To me, this isn't just a Columbia Borough Council issue. It's not just a police issue. It's not just a downtown issue. This is a Columbia Borough issue, and the people live here, and what we're willing to tolerate and put up with any longer. And I think we need to have some kind of discussion with it at some kind of forum. Is how can we attack this problem? Because if we don't do something, it's just going to get to the point where you're not going to walk downtown any longer. So I welcome any comments anybody has, but I would think we need to add this at some future agenda item to bring in for discussion. So that's how I feel about it. I'm just fed up with it.
Well, I agree, it is an issue, but I don't know what the solution is.
There has to be some kind of public health recommendations or guidelines out there. This is a public health issue.
Well, right, I know.
I mean, we have ordinance on the books that don't allow you to let your animal defecate on somebody else's personal property.
Well,
Or
right.
subject to a fine.
They go hand out bags.
Hand out bags?
They do. For humans, I'm not going to mention it.
I mean, I don't know what.
You do know what it is.
We
We
know
know
what it
exactly
is,
what it
but
is.
we don't know what the solution is what I'm
Yes,
saying.
yes,
Well, I think we attack it as a public health issue. That's how we have to look at it.
got it.
It's a public health issue. It's not a people issue. It's a
No.
public health issue.
Correct.
Let's start there.
It is a people issue. It's not a health issue, it's a people issue. People don't want to take responsibility or accountability for their actions. And other people allow those actions to occur.
We understand that, but
I mean,
we understand that, but I think that's probably the best way.
and to me, I'm just like, I'm just solely appalled because this is a church. This is a church we're talking about here. This is a public building. This is if you can't respect a church property, there's no way you're gonna respect anything, including yourself. We have, including our property, we have a memorial garden on the side lot, the side grassy of our church, where there are the cremated remains of a few people that were members of the church buried there, and we're finding it in there. It is ridiculous. I don't want to get into, I don't want to get into it because I'm going to get angry about it, but I don't want it to get to the point where we have to take drastic measures to deal with what's going on here. And I'll let you define what you think drastic measures are. But it's a shame that we have to put up on a church no trespassing signs so that people will not go in there and use our property as a public toilet. It's ridiculous.
Comment?
Go ahead.
Sure.
No, it's a work session, I'm not included. I'm not sure if you was here, Kelly, when I brought up about the Catholic Church, about what they were doing there, they were doing the same thing. And it's instead of went up the alley, and they had red cones, so you couldn't go down into that area. But the contractor that tore the 3 houses down, they cleaned everything up for them. So what they did since that, I don't know. Now, I brought up about the market house, they don't have a door to the outside, and this sits all week long, that it could probably be used. What would they use it? That's, I have a problem thinking, they're not gonna use it.
And I could,
The borough's open all week long.
So you don't need that.
Yeah, I never knew that, so Mark brought it up. Who else knows that? I asked some people about, well, I didn't know I could go in there during the day.
A lot of people would.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and some people, that's the ones I asked, just told me they didn't know about that.
and as far as the market house goes, ours was changed for the same reason Lancaster City changed theirs, because of what was being done to them. I'm not just talking about vandalizing them. I'm talking about people using them for their personal.
Yeah.
You don't take baths in a public restroom.
Yeah.
That's why it was done.
So, do you do what Lancaster did? You spend what, 22,000 per unit, put a couple of them around, and are they going to use it? What I didn't hear yet is how they're being taken care of. After a week or 2 or 3, when them tell the public, are they busting it up or what are they doing? You're right for bringing that up. I don't have a solution either, but I know buying the units, I don't think that's the way to do it. I never did see one. I tried to find it there in Lancaster. Me and my brother, boy Dave, rode around one day, and I didn't know where they had put them. But that took off the sewer, the electric, the water, and are they taking care of them?
I mean, we have them in our parks.
Mhm.
They're in our parks. I mean, that's why we have to lock the bathrooms down at Columbia Crossing, because
Oh, you did do that?
sometimes we do, yeah.
Yeah, I don't have an answer either, but.
We have problems here.
So.
We have problems here time to time.
It's just, how do you?
The library has shut their restaurant down. Yeah.
How do you get the people to take care of themselves? Respect their property?
They don't care. But it may be, I mean, there's a mental health component there as well.
That's
Yeah, that's where it should go.
They should put 2 of them.
Yeah, they
One
should.
door.
I don't want to make it about people.
All right, anything
Thank you,
else?
thank you.
Nothing, thanks.
Nothing? I have something to say this evening. I don't know if anyone was aware, but, you know, Mark and I have been up at the PSAB conference. Today was the awards luncheon, and Mark has officially earned his certified borough official designation. He received his plaque.
Thank you.
So, yes, so, and it was a very good showing. There were actually 4 from Lancaster County that got their award today. Linda up in Ephrata, Mark Puglisi
Mount Joy Borough.
from Mount Joy Borough, and Christine, I don't know her last name, from
Strasburg Borough.
Strasburg Borough. And then, of course, Linda from Ephrata, my friend Linda. So, yes,
Jamie,
Mark is officially a certified borough official.
Congratulations, Mark.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And it was, I was telling Eric, one of the sessions I went to, very interesting. It was crisis communications. And it was the borough council from West Reading Borough that had the chocolate factory explosion last year. And to hear how they handled it. And it was very interesting, very interesting. So, learning a lot. All right. Announcement of next meeting at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, June 11th. Council will hold a regularly scheduled meeting. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
I have a motion by Councilperson Kaufman, second by Councilperson Stahl, to adjourn at 8:36 p.m. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? We're adjourned.
Yeah.